I'm getting a lot of questions asked about the impact of this war with Iran. People are starting to worry, some because the S&P 500 is down about 9%. The NASDAQ is down 12% or so, is actually in correction territory. And so there's so many people worried what will happen. And what's really that's moving people right now is oil prices. And Grayson, let's take a stab at all that. But before we do, give us a breakdown on what's going on with this war with Iran.
The way that it started was back in February, the U.S. and Israel launched an attack against Iran, and they sent a bunch of missiles towards them, attacking military infrastructure and also their leaders. And it was really out of the blue. It was on a Saturday, and we took out their supreme leader, the Ayatollah. And so now what's happened is his son has taken over, and they've launched counterattacks. They're going after population centers in Israel and other U.S. Bases and assets in other countries like Qatar and Oman. And so what we're seeing now is that Iran is taking control over the Strait of Hormuz. They're not letting any commercial ships go through, which is basically causing about 20% of the oil that's used on the globe to not be able to come through, which is why we're seeing gas prices get so high. And so the question is, how can we get this resolved? Is it going to be Iran getting what they want, or the U.S. getting what we want, or somewhere in between?
I think you're absolutely right. You know, we a lot of times have high hopes. The president comes out and says, you know, we're making a deal and we're getting close. Then Iran comes back and says, no, we're not even at the table. And so there's a lot of confusion out there. And we really need to get to a point that this thing gets resolved, and hopefully very quickly, because the quicker it gets resolved, the better off we're going to be financially. As this progresses and it just lags around and it just keeps dragging on, this will be most likely worse for our economy and for our stock market.
Yeah, there have been a couple of different groups. The OECD has predicted that inflation will be up from around 3% to 4.2% because of rising energy prices. Morgan Stanley's even come out and said that for every 10% that oil prices go up, you can expect a little bit more inflation, about 0.35% over the course of a 3-month period. And so what we're looking at is, again, how fast can we get this resolved? Iran is saying that they want reparations for what's going on. They're saying that they don't want any more attacks on their officials or their military property. And they're also wanting international recognition for their control over the Strait of Hormuz, which would be a big deal. And so the U.S., on the other hand, is saying that they want Iran to denuclearize, and they'd also like for Iran to start letting people back through that Strait of Hormuz again. And Iran realizes that that's their point of leverage on us and against the West right now.
How do you think Israel plays a part in this, since they went to war with us with this? Some are concerned that the president doesn't have any control over Israel, and this thing could even continue once we get our objectives met, that this thing could continue. How do you see that?
Israel definitely plays a big part in this. As you recall, just a few months ago, these two countries were beefing with each other and they were shooting missiles, and Trump went in and tried to negotiate peace. And now it seems like an opportunity has come back up, and Israel has come on the record stating that they're not going to pause their strikes against Iran until some sort of peace deal is brought about.
The thing with it is you're hearing so many conflicting stories in the news that I think so many news anchors are trying to make headlines for themselves, and we're not getting possibly a true picture of what's going on. And so until we do, I think basically all we can do is not run on fear, is to sit back and wait for the real news, what's really happening over there, and are we making progress, and to stand firm on that and not move until we really have some good information.
An interesting thing to point out, too, is usually markets will perform and they'll make about a 2.92% on average return in the following 12 months after a geopolitical shock. And so it's something that shows that a lot of times markets will shrug this sort of thing off. But again, it's going to go to how long does it take. If it can get resolved quickly, it could be like Operation Iraqi Freedom, or even possibly like the Korean War where the stock market flourished. But it's going to have to do with how things are impacted here and how we in the United States deal with the repercussions of our actions.
You know, there's so much worry, I think, today about inflation, and not only inflation, but stagflation. And, you know, stagflation, I think, is a possibility, especially if we get to a place where this thing is not resolved quickly. And stagflation is a bad word when it comes to the economy and the stock market.
It's certainly a threat, and it's certainly something we're keeping our eyes on. Again, we're not running for the hills when we see news like this, but we do understand its significance. And just like you, we're doing our due diligence to make sure that we're being the best stewards of what God's given us to manage as we possibly can. We'll keep you updated on this, and we'll let you know if we have anything else for you in the coming weeks. If you like our content and you want to see more, like and subscribe.